do altered states of consciousness affect people's perception of reality and their everyday lives? So what are altered states of consciousness? Psychology today defines them as various mental states in which the mind can be aware, but it is not in its usual wakeful condition. Some examples of altered states of consciousness are the mind state in meditating, being hypnotized, hallucinating, and dreaming. So, an interesting aspect of this question is mental illnesses, including hallucinations, severe ones being schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, delirium, and dementia, suffering from hallucinations of all the senses, like olfactory, which, as we know, like of the smelling, your smelling sense, and then tactile, physical, gustatory, which is your taste, auditory, which you hear things that aren't there, and obviously visual as well. This chart is from an Asian counseling and referral service, but it is interesting to see how all the different age groups, genders, and ethnicities are affected by mental illness. And this was in 2015. Okay, so Lewis Carroll, in his book, Through the Looking Glass, which a chapter was included in our stimulus packet, Looking Glass House, he seems to explore this idea. So Alice is in a state between awake and asleep, as he mentions on the second page, that she is half asleep. Then we start to see that she's imagining things and fading in and out of focus, like where he says that she was up on the chimney piece, though she hardly knew how she got there. So her being in this half asleep state, she's forgetting what she's doing. She doesn't know what she's doing. Then she's imagining illogical things to be happening, such as a kitten's talking, like where it's mentioned. She says, "Now if you'll only attend, kitty, and not talk so much, I'll tell you my ideas about Looking Glass House," which Looking Glass House, as we know, is obviously imagined as well. So before I get to the counter argument, it's just the idea of imagining what it would be like to be in a constant state of wondering what's reality and what's imagined. He seems to delve into that issue by using complex descriptions of what are imagined to be Alice's hallucinations, whether it be from mental illness, drug use, or anything else. So, supporters of this, supporters of altering states of consciousness explain that it opens up opportunities. So, yes, supporters argue that altered states of consciousness are beneficial to some people's mental conditions. Psychologist Krista Smith on Psychology Today says, "Many of us are like Adele, one of her patients. We live our lives and meet our challenges with the intellect, neglecting the opportunities that altered states offer." So her idea is that being in an altered state of consciousness like mental illness opens up opportunities to re-alter it into a beneficial way. Her example being mindfulness, which is like a state of consciousness that you're just aware of your feelings, aware of your actual mental state. So some solutions are being monitored by professionals, like drug use, for example. When not monitored by professionals or doctors, they can be detrimental to people's mental health because, for example, with heroin use, when it goes into your brain, your endorphins flood, and your endorphins know that they're producing too many and stop producing them, which they're absolutely essential to functioning every day. So using prescription drugs can be beneficial when monitored by professionals. Some healthier alternatives of altered states of consciousness are things like meditation, where, just focusing on one thing, focusing on your mind itself. Then also a healthy compromise of altered states of consciousness, like things like mindfulness. That's it.
Okay, one question for you, Claudia. How did you use the conclusion and then questions of others to advance your own research? So like conclusions from your research or questions from your research to advance it.
Well, using different sources from different psychology websites did open up new questions of different perspectives. So trying to include things like that, like drug use, for example, is an altered state of consciousness that I didn't really think about at the beginning. It was mostly focusing on mental illnesses and hallucinatory states and stuff. So yeah, looking at different resources that included different perspectives of the idea helped me advance my research as well.